Guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I have a review on a Kat Von D eyeshadow palette, and this is the Chrysalis eyeshadow palette. And Kat Von D Beauty has just recently launched here in the UK, so I'm just becoming familiar with all her products. This palette is probably old news to most of you guys in the US. It came out a couple of years ago, I believe, but we've only just managed to get our hands on it here in the UK, so I wanted to go ahead and review it for you guys. I believe there is another palette that goes alongside this. I think it's called the Monarch palette. I think that was in Debenhams, but last time I checked it seemed to have disappeared, so I don't know if it's sold out or whether they're going to restock. They might even have it on the site now. But I've got the Chrysalis palette. The Monarch palette is more warm toned and this is more of a cool toned palette. First things first, we'll go through packaging, and it is a really sturdy cardboard packaging. I do prefer hard cases myself because I just feel like they're more durable, and I do worry with cardboard cases that they're going to get a bit bashed and everything. But this is quite nice and sturdy. Obviously the opening is magnetized, so that's really good for travel, and it's a pretty nice decent size for travel as well, and it's not too bulky. Obviously with this being a Kat Von D palette, you would expect it to be pretty extravagant packaging, and it is. It's absolutely stunning. You've got this beautiful butterfly here, and also inside the butterfly you can see little skulls everywhere, so that's a really nice touch. And on the back you have the shade names. So once you open the palette up, you do have a mirror. It isn't the most useful mirror in the world because it just flops down like that, but you can prop it up and you still get use out of it. But it is a nice decent sized mirror. And then you have your 12 eyeshadows. So along the top here you have your highlight shades, which are bigger than everything else because you're going to get a lot of use out of highlight shades. And then you have 9 shadows along the bottom here. One of the things you will notice is there are no names printed here. You literally have to go by the back of the palette. Personally for me, I prefer it when the names are printed underneath the eyeshadows, but it's still better than having that crappy plastic sheet thing that gets lost all the time. So with these shadows, with the larger shadows you get 2.7 grams worth of product, and with the smaller shadows you get 1.4 grams worth of product, so you get a really nice amount of product. These larger shades here are massive, like they're going to last a really long time. So before we get into swatches and everything, I just want to give you my take on this palette. I've had this for a few weeks now and I've been meaning to review it for quite some time. As you guys might have known if you've watched my last video, I haven't been so well lately, but I have used every shade in this palette and I've been using it over and over again to see how I like the shadows. And overall I do think it's a nice palette. I do really like the shadows, but there are some that I find slightly troublesome, mainly these purple shades here. They're not too bad, but with purple shades it just seems like companies struggle to get it right, and this palette is no exception, which is kind of a shame because the purple shades are almost like what drew me to the palette. One of the things I do love about this palette though is, as well as your pops of colour, you do have your neutral shades as well. So if you're someone who wants to try out a bit of colour, or you like a bit of colour but you don't want something like in your face, and you want to mix it up with some neutral shades, you've got some really nice neutral shades going on in the middle here. I also really like the larger highlight shades as well. So this pink highlight gave me a bit of trouble. It's a little bit gritty and there's some sparkles in there. I just don't find that it tends to apply smoothly to my skin. But as for the other two highlighters, I really like them. The darker shades do apply really nicely. This one here does need a bit of work, which is a shame. I really wanted this to be like pow in your face pigmented. I'm wearing this on my lower lash line and you can get it to look like it does in the palette, but it just takes a bit of building up. But as for the rest of the shadows, I've had absolutely no problem with them and I do like the formula. So those are the pros and cons for me, at least with this palette. I just wish the purples were better, but I know a lot of brands tend to really struggle with purple. The other thing I find confusing about having the shade names on the back is that they aren't necessarily in order with what's in the palette. So Lifelike is where the pink is, and Lucid is where Lifelike is, if that makes sense. So you have Lucid here, and then in front you actually have that cream shade. And I believe from looking at the back of the actual packaging that Lifelike is more than likely the cream shade, and then you have Lunar Light and then Lucid. That's how I read it anyway, so I feel like the names on the back are back to front, if that makes sense. But that's how I read it, and I also looked at a few other reviews and Temptalia's website, and that's how she lists it as well. So that's what I'm going to go by anyway. So that is a little bit confusing. Okay, so the first shade we have is Lifelike, and this is a matte cream. This is very soft and buttery, but you do get a lot of fallout, and that's something I've also noticed with a few of these eyeshadows, that you do get a lot of fallout. They're very powdery. As soon as you put your brush in, they tend to make quite a bit of mess, which is why my palette does look a little bit messy as well. But I don't mind that as long as the shadows perform well, and this is a really nice highlight shade. So the next shadow is called Lunar Light, and this is a pale grey shade, and there's not as much fallout with this one. It's still very, very soft and it applies beautifully. I like using this on the inner corners of my eyes. So then we come to this final highlight shade called Lucid, and this is described as a sparkle rose. This is slightly grittier, and I don't feel like it goes on as smoothly as the other highlights. You do have some glitter particles in there, but I don't know, I'm not sure if I like that addition. I wish it was more shimmery rather than glittery, if that makes sense. Then we come to the 9 smaller shadows, and we're starting with Hybrid Moments. Hybrid Moments is a matte deep purple. This is another very powdery eyeshadow, and it did apply quite patchy for me. And when I went to blend it, it tended to blend away, so I had to keep going back and building the shadow up. It does tend to take quite a few layers of this shadow to get what you're seeing in the pan there. It's okay, but it's just not the best formula in the world. This next shadow here is called Mezzanine, and this is described as a sparkle violet. This does perform better than the darker purple, but to be honest, when I did like a whole purple eye look, I used these 3 shades here, this on the inner corner, this in the middle, and this to darken up the corners. And to be honest, I didn't really see much difference between these two, whereas they look really different in the pan. I just felt like they didn't look that different on the eye, and which is a shame really, because I really wanted something to darken up the outer corner. But this does perform okay. The next shade is called Transition, and it's described as a purple mauve, which is a really good description for it. It is very buttery, very pigmented, and it applies beautifully. I had no problems with that one. Okay, next shadow is Glass Wing, and this is described as a matte caramel, and it's what I'm wearing kind of all in my crease today. This is a really nice shadow. It's really, really pigmented. It is buttery, very powdery though, but it blends like a dream. I love this shadow. So the next shade is called Melancholia, and it's described as a pearl silver, and this is what I'm wearing on the inner half of my lid today, and it's almost like a foiled eyeshadow. It's really, really beautiful, really shimmery and super pigmented. I think this already has a dent in it. That's how much I love this shadow. It's probably my favourite shadow in the entire palette. Then we have the next shade. This is called Black Milk. It is a matte grey, a very nice light grey. It is buttery and very, very pigmented. The shade here is called Graphic Nature. It is described as a pale charcoal. It is nice and pigmented, but it does take a little bit of building up if you want to get that intensity. You do get a lot of fallout though, but it is a really nice gunmetal grey. Then we come to this eyeshadow, which is really, really nice once you build it up. Again, this is what I'm wearing on my lower lash line. It is described as a pale blue, and it is like a really nice pearlescent navy blue as you see in the palette, but I just wish it came off like that. I had the same problem with this as I did with this purple shade up here. It tends to blend away quite easily, and it does tend to apply a little bit patchy as well, but it is workable. I definitely recommend using a primer with it though. The final shade is called Tournay. I think I'm pronouncing that right. This is described as a matte grey, which it almost looks like a black and blue in the palette, but actually on the lid it does look more like a very, very dark grey, and I'm wearing this on the outer half of my lid today. This is a pretty nice shadow. It blends out really nicely. It's really, really nice and pigmented, so this is definitely one of the better performing shadows in the palette. Okay guys, so that was my roundup of the Kat Von D Chrysalis eyeshadow palette. Overall, I have really enjoyed using this. There are definitely a few things that I would change. I think if you are looking for a cool toned palette that does have nice pops of colour, then this is definitely worth checking out. But if you're buying it for the purples, just beware that they don't perform as well as I wish they did. Okay guys, so I hope you found that helpful in some way. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you to all my new subscribers as well, and I'll see you in my next video.